At EquiLotus, we bridge business challenges with the right software solution. And when needed, our talented teams can implement solutions whether you're buying or building. Today, I'm excited to share a leadership podcast with someone who has been an incredible leader and a true sponsor, not just for me, but for many across the industry. Our guest is Jim O'Neill. Those who traveled along fondly call him Tom Brady of leadership. Before we start, a little bit about Jim's background. Jim retired from Bank of America 3 years ago after 31 years with the company as technology executive. During his career, Jim led large global teams providing technology services to a wide range of businesses. Jim is known for assembling high performing teams that consistently delivered results for the company's clients and employees. In his personal life, Jim and his wife Nancy have three daughters and are proud grandparents of two, soon to be three, grandchildren. Jim is very involved in the community as an elected member of the town select board and also a member of local nonprofit organization. I genuinely believe that anyone who listens to the conversation will walk away with an authentic and a fresh perspective on human aspect of leadership. Let's listen from Jim. So, Jim, I wanted this podcast to be my experience with you and also inclusive of prominent figures in your career. And I'm not surprised that there are a lot of common thoughts from all of us about you. You have high IQ and EQ. I'm reading it out because it's so many feedbacks you've gotten. Authentic, genuinely caring, people are important for you. You never waver and continue to invest in a person. You don't believe in hierarchies. You're a person of integrity and credibility. The list goes on, and I have first-hand experience of all this feedback. What was your childhood like, which shaped the leader in you?
Saying, Neil, thank you for giving me this opportunity to come and share some of these thoughts. And those comments are very, very nice comments and humbling, quite frankly. So thank you for passing those on to me. And anyway, I hope that we have a good conversation here today, and I'm able to give something back to whomever the audience might be, and we'll see how it goes. But so from a childhood point of view, and there was a lot in my childhood that shaped who I am. I grew up in a family with five brothers and sisters, so there were six of us, and of course, my mom and dad. And my mom and dad were very supportive, very loving. They provided great structure in my life and a lot of great guidance. Things that they gave to me that were important to them were they had strong faith, they believed in education, they believed in hard work, and they believed in giving back, community service, those kinds of things. And those were important in my growing up years to me and to my brothers and sisters, as we went through those years. A little bit about my mom and dad. So my mom was a major influence. They both were, but my mom was a significant influence on me in many ways. She was a graduate of Boston College class of 1952, which was the first class at BC where they were fully co-ed. And she was always very, very proud of that fact that she was part of the first class at BC to be fully co-ed. She graduated as a registered nurse, and she had a professional career for many years. And but she was very proud of that. My dad was World War II vet. He was in college, World War II. Then he went to medical school coming out of World War II and had a long career as an orthopedic surgeon. And so you could see that they both put a big emphasis on education, and that definitely came through to me. They also gave me some things things that as I've thought about this discussion, things that caused me to be the person I am. My mother used to say, treat people the way you want to be treated. Yeah. Those seemed like, very wise words from her, and those are words that I took forward. Excuse me. My dad always was about hard work, and he believed that once you started something, you finished it. And so if you were, taking tennis lessons, but you decided, I don't really like the tennis lessons, which by the way is a true story. And but the answer was, oh no, you're not quitting tennis lessons. You started them, you gotta finish them. And that was something that I took forward from my childhood and through my life. And finally, just the value of hard work. My mom and dad demonstrated through the way that they lived their lives, and they had a high expectation of me and my brothers and sisters that you'd work hard, that you would achieve, that you would, grow and progress in your life and your career and so forth and so on. And there was just this expectation. But I had a wonderful childhood, to be honest with you, and
Yeah.
I do think it has played a huge role in the person I am today.
That seemed to have made you very secure as a person,
Oh, very,
very
yeah.
secure, and we would not see you being somebody who would be upset easily, or you always were there for the people. And it was like a huge championship which is happening over there, and you're leading the championship.
Yeah, yeah. I also was fortunate in my growing up years to have a crew of friends that were similarly inclined to, achieving and setting high goals and aspirations and expectations and working hard. And I would also say that I was exposed to some coaches and in one case, a music teacher who really brought out the best in me in so many ways. And, I have to be grateful to those coaches and teachers that have done that, cause you to be better than you otherwise would have been. And
Yeah.
I try to take things from that as well as I, go through my life and personally and professionally. And how do I make myself a better person, but also how do you, get the most out of whether it's, the people you worked with and for, or the people that you hang around with day in and day out.
Yeah, you brought up very important points of having a very warm, loving family. With your father is coming from a veteran background, and mother is also highly educated for
Mhm.
those that generation.
Yeah.
Uh, there are families, so there are children who still, with all of that, could feel insecure and had to go through that experience of personal barriers. Sometimes the bar is too high set by parents, and
Yeah.
as children, they might have to. Did you have that kind of an experience where you had to overcome that personal barriers where you felt like, I need to do this?
So as you go through your life, you always have situations where you either, you have successes, you have failures, you have things in the middle. And so, yeah, I mean, you always wanted to make sure that you hit that high bar that you set for yourself. But when you don't, you also have to see it for what it is. And so there were many occasions that in growing up and in my professional career all the way to the current day where things don't go quite the way you think they will or you hope they will. And you just have to work your way through that and be resilient personally, to make sure that you either learn from whatever the experience was, and if you made a mistake that you don't repeat the mistake. And then how you just take it as an overall experience. My
Yeah.
view on life generally is it's a set of it's an accumulation of every experience you've ever had, the good ones and the bad ones.
Mm,
All of those things bring you to the person you are right now, and it's the cumulative effect. And so the failures are an important part of that. The
mm,
successes are as well. We like the successes more than the failures, but the failures are an important part of that.
mm.
So sure, I had to overcome, those instances where I came up short, and sometimes that was easier said than done, and depending on the nature of the failure. But yeah, I certainly empathize with anybody who has that struggle of I've got to meet a high bar and sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
And my just view on that would be is it's just all part of life and you just got to work your way through it.
You seem to look at life as a marathon, a journey, and it
Oh,
is
sure.
going to be an experience. It could be ebbs and flows, and you will, like your dad says, if you start something, you got to finish it. That
Finish
kind
it.
of a mindset.
Bingo.
And
Yeah,
mom's point of view, which is treat people the way you want to be treated with kindness.
exactly. Yeah. Which, in those moments of failure,
Yeah,
if you've got people around you that you trust and love and who provide support and structure,
yeah.
then that makes that a lot easier. Some of that comes from the way you treat people.
Mm,
And so, you always have to think about that in every personal interaction you have, because they're not all positive.
mm.
But you have to ask yourself a question, if I'm on the other side of the coin where I've got some sort of failure and I need help, I want to be able to depend on people, which means that you have to have strong relationships, and that's all part of this whole view of the world of treating people the way you want to be treated.
You do it extraordinarily, the way
Thank you.
what you have said.
Thank you.
You- A lot of people, as I called out the list of all the appreciations when I was talking to you, I'm going to call out some of the people as well through this conversation we're having. You have always been there for the people who believed in you and you believed in them. Sometimes you might have experienced those difficult situations like any leader would have experienced where you believe in your people's capabilities and they have a strong track record of delivery and perhaps the partners, maybe business partners, are not supportive of them. How do you encourage the managers to handle such situations?
First of all, you are dependent upon the people that you have around you, and you always have to keep that in mind. And so you want the people who are around you to be successful because that makes you and the group successful. And so, of course, that should be your objective. You also, I think, want to be hanging around with people that are better than you because they make you better. And so, in the situations where you have people who, are working with you and so forth, who might be struggling with either a manager or a situation, obviously you want to provide some level of, support, encouragement, mentoring, coaching, whatever the right word is, to bring those people along and help them to become better, because when they're better, everyone's better.
Kathy Besant says this for you, and I'm going to read it out.
I
Yeah, I know you have a high regard for Kathy.
love Kathy.
She mentioned a number of things, and this one particular I have to call out so you know really well. Jim gives important and authentic feedback, focuses that feedback on stewarding constructive change when needed. He's direct, tells people, even powerful people, what they need to hear. So, Jim, sometimes feedback could be a double-edged sword,
It can be.
right? Managers so often worry of consequences of whether giving the feedback, direct feedback, especially to senior leadership. And a very prominent senior leader in the industry, Kathy says you have done that kind of things already. How did you do it?
So when I think about how I like to be managed or be led, I love direct, clear, concise input. And to me, that's the only way to get something done. I've experienced managers both ways, where you have some managers who are, they beat around the bush, they're not as direct, and maybe they're wishy-washy or change their mind. I've had others that are extremely direct and who make it absolutely clear what it is that they want. I find those to be the better people to work for, because you have a clear understanding of what's expected of you and you can go and do it. I like to think that that's the same way that I interact with people, whether it's up the chain or down the chain, is being direct. When I'm dealing up the chain and wanting to make sure that either an issue is understood or risk is understood, or that I need some form of direction or feedback because there's an issue or I need a roadblock cleared, you have to be absolutely clear what it is that you need. And if you're not getting it from the person, even if they're above you, and you have to do this, in a way that is not going to upset them or create a bigger problem, but you have to say to them, look, I really need you to help me. I really need you to clear this roadblock. I really need you to tell me, what I need to be doing different. And I'll put it into these terms: make them do their job. I mean, that's really the bottom line. Leaders got to lead, managers got to manage. That was one of the things I used to say 1,000 times. make them do their job. Now, the same thing is true as you go down the chain and you've got people who are trying to get things done. Look, everybody wants to do a good job. That's one of the things that I am absolutely certain of. Everyone wants to do a good job, but sometimes people are better equipped to do something, or maybe the problem is such that it hasn't been something they've experienced before, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to be also very clear and direct with those folks, and you need to encourage them to be clear with you.
Mm.
So one of the traps you fall into is you think you're being clear, you think you're telling somebody what it is that they need to be successful, only to find out that they didn't really understand what you were saying and they either go in the wrong direction and create some other issue, or they're just simply not successful. So you want to be also introducing that sort of feedback loop with them to say, and this is up the chain too,
Yes.
you know, do you understand what I'm saying? Asking someone to repeat it back to you is always a good idea. You know, tell me what you think you just heard, that kind of thing. And then there's also and if it isn't working, come right back to me, don't wait.
Mm.
So all of these things are things that I found to be successful, and clarity, conciseness, I think, are at the center of all of that.
Number of things are jumping into my mind as you're saying all of this, Jim. It seems to me that it goes back to the initial thoughts many of us felt that hierarchies are something you're not focusing on. You're treating the people down the chain or up the chain as humans.
That's right.
And you made a very powerful statement, which is even if it's a senior leader, it's make them do their job.
Right.
And yet be humble and kind by
Yep.
saying, turn it around in a way that I need help.
Yeah.
To give me the feedback.
Yeah.
Let's grow together. Let's solve together. That seemed to be your thought process.
It is. And to go back to your point on the hierarchies, I also liked to flip the hierarchy.
Yes.
So, and I would say this in meetings and with individuals and so forth, that if you think about the hierarchy sort of in an upside down way, I work for you. Just think about that. And that whole make me do my job thing is where that really shows up. Because I do work for you. And I
Yeah.
mean that also in all sincerity. It is my job to do certain things on your behalf. And in that regard, I work for you. So, yeah, hierarchies were not something I ever really paid a lot of attention to. I believe much more in collaboration and networking and, having the relationships, whether they were within your organization or outside, where when you needed somebody to do something, you were able to go and get it done.
Mm.
And so, hierarchies have their place. Obviously, you have to have people that are in charge. That goes to ownership and accountability, but they are not the be all and the end all. And I certainly never lived within them for the sake of living within them.
Yeah. That is a fantastic way of thinking about it. When do you, and also before I ask the next question, it seems to me that it is not just for managers, the way you operate, the way the leadership traits you have. It could be an individual contributor as well, can be a leader.
Oh, oh,
It doesn't matter they need to be a people manager or not. You could have your position of power to assert yourself and to do that in a way that it is coming across constructively to your point.
that's right. So I kind of think of two kinds of leaders. You got those that are running teams or running organizations or parts of organization, be the whole thing. Those are
Yeah.
certainly leaders. But then you've got those people that are within the organization, those individual contributors that have some skill or some trait or something that makes them very important to the way the organization functions. Excuse me, they tend to be role models to either the peer group or beyond. And those people are critical to the success of any organization because it's sort of that inner working thing, the informal communications and processes that so often solve problems or make projects go. And I can think of many times where having, some individual who was expert at what they do or very good at some aspect of what they do that wasn't even expertise, but maybe it was a personal kind of trait they had to get something done. Those people were critical to the success of the organization, and they're every bit as much a leader as somebody who's got that designation as, running this group or the company or whatever.
Yeah. And to add to your point, it seems to me that we do not need individual contributors to feel empowered by somebody else. You are empowered by yourself too, because you are in that role for a reason. And it is very valuable what you provide as a feedback constructively. When should managers exercise caution in providing feedback um, versus giving the feedback?
So where you need to be careful is when you don't understand what's going on, whether that is a personal situation or some technical thing that you just simply don't know or understand. And that's not something to be afraid of, but we all have our limits. And so you need to make sure that you're on steady ground as you're giving feedback to somebody, because first of all, you want to give them the right feedback, but second, you also don't want to be eroding your own credibility. And if you don't know something, you just have to say, I don't know it. Or if you don't understand something about a situation, you need to go dig in on that. So those are areas where you definitely have to be careful about the feedback you're giving, because you don't want to give the wrong feedback. I think in other ways, you want to make sure that the feedback you're giving is the right feedback. So, maybe I do understand what's going on, but still for you, the feedback that I'm giving is not maybe the right feedback.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be cognizant of that as well, which, goes to this whole notion of leadership style and emotional intelligence and all that.
Yeah.
And just being able to make sure you understand where the other person's coming from and offer them feedback that's going to actually work for them.
Yeah. It goes back to I'm thinking about all the thoughts I'm hearing from a lot of people, which is high IQ and EQ, which you have, and you when you mentioned about you need to know whether the feedback is something other person can receive it or not.
Right.
It is a very important skill to have, a soft skill to
Mhm.
have, and
Mhm.
you ace that. Can you, for our audience, give a bit of insight into how to come up about for that decision-making process of whether the person you want to give feedback to, it's the timing is right or not to give the
Yeah.
feedback? What is that emotional intelligence factor which comes in play for you?
So there's so much that goes into this notion of emotional intelligence. So let's just back up a step and talk about it. So to me, emotional intelligence is having the ability to understand your own emotions, your own self, and understanding how to then keep those emotions in check if you need to, or use them if they're helpful. And that extends to the person or persons you're interacting with. You need to be aware of, who they are and what's important to them and all that. So this comes down to understanding your own strengths, your own weaknesses, and very important, your blind spots. We all have them. And some of us, and I think this is something I'm probably guilty of, some of us don't pay as much attention to their blind spots as they probably ought to. And that all by itself will create, emotional conflict if you don't really fully understand your blind spots.
Yeah.
You also need to be understanding strengths, weaknesses, and blind spots of the person you're dealing with, because in order for me to have a constructive conversation and one that, comes out the right way, um, using the skills of understanding strengths, weaknesses, blind spots can help guide that conversation. It does come down to managing yourself, being self-aware, and then there's this whole question of empathy and how does empathy play into the equation. And I think strong leaders are empathetic leaders. They are people who look to the people that are in their groups, their teams, the whole organization, and thinks about, what are the values, what's important to that person, what is concerning them, what's disturbing them. Some of that comes down to being a good listener and just, picking up on the cues, because it's not always something that's obvious. And again, this is probably an area that I could have done better on and done more work on. but it's something that I'm certainly aware of, that being empathetic is part of the whole EQ equation, along with self-awareness and knowing yourself and others.
You mentioned the word aware. It's a great segue to hear Jeff Miller's thoughts about you.
Yeah,
He,
just
he,
a
he's,
quick pause on it. Jeff Miller is absolutely one of my favorite people, as is Kathy Basant. You said earlier, I love Kathy.
yes, yes.
But Jeff and I have a long history, and I'm glad you had a chance to talk to him. He's a really interesting guy.
He is. He has been wonderful. And there are a number of feedbacks in the beginning it weaved into, and his feedback and Kathy's feedback, and more people I'm going to mention, their feedback also are weaved in there. One specific one he stressed a lot about is you're extremely aware leader. That I have observed as well. And in my experience, my journey working with you as well, how do you do it to be so aware of the situation, the people around you, so that you navigate the ship so flawlessly?
So that's a really interesting question, and it's a hard one to answer because, first of all, I think some of it is just instinctive,
Mhm.
and but it does go back to some of the things we just talked about around understanding the people that you're interacting with or the situation. Because what Jeff's referring to, of course, is not just about the people, but also about the awareness of the situation and, you know, how critical is it? What do I have to do in terms of escalation? How am I thinking about the risk elements of it? That kind of stuff. So you have to think about all of these elements as you come into this whole notion of awareness, and how aware am I of what is the issue, what is person's need, what we need to do differently, that kind of stuff. I don't know that I have an answer that says A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This is how I
It's
do
hard,
it.
like you said,
Uh,
it is hard, and it weaves back into when you are not hierarchical, you're approachable to people. When you
yeah,
are approachable to people, you get to know more
yeah,
about. And my experience with you, Shane, if you remember back almost 8 years to 10 years
yeah,
ago, we were at a
yeah.
town hall, and your town hall, and perhaps that was one of the first times I have met you. And I was talking about a passionate topic which I had. And with your support, I went on to do it for the broader organization, a panel event to bring awareness. So it weaves into your intuitive thinking and your very aware mindset, the high IQ and EQ aspect of it, where you assess really well when you need to step in and give that support, and when you need to perhaps let them do on their own. That seems like a magic formula which Jim has in his mindset.
Thank you. Um, excuse me. Going back those 8 years, and I remember that day very clearly. And part of what happened there, Neil, was you came to me and said, I have an idea. I need help getting that idea to come to fruition.
Yeah.
So you understood what you wanted to do. You understood that you needed some help. I guess you saw me as somebody who could provide that help, and I think I did. But more importantly, you were willing to take it and run with it, to own it, to make it come to life. I did minimal stuff to help you get that done. You did all the work. And that panel discussion was, number one, it was very well attended. That room was packed. And second, the feedback that I heard afterwards was really positive. And you did a magnificent job of organizing it and then running it. A lot of people can organize things, but they can't then, run it. You ran it. So you made it fairly easy for me because you came to me and said, I got an idea, I need some help. And I'm like, well, first of all, thank you for coming to me. And I like this idea. And I'd love to see, it come to fruition. So let's go do it. But, again, it was, you asked me, how do I see that? And, when do I step in or not, help or not? And you gave me the strong sense that this was a passion, something passionate to you, but also something you were going to run with, and you just needed me to give you the air cover to make it happen. So we did that, and I think it was highly successful. You take it to the broader question of any situation where you're dealing with someone who, because a lot of people have great ideas, but not all great ideas are something that you can go and do. You still have to stay focused on the core mission and get stuff done. But there are those circumstances like the one that you and I experienced where you do want to step in and need to step in. It's also somehow about thinking about the importance of whatever that it might be to the organization, and not just the team that you're in, but the company.
Yes.
And the company culture that you and I were in was one that was very supportive of this and sort of encouraged it, and I'd say made it easy, but it wasn't easy. But we weren't afraid to go and do it. And
Well, it is a very exciting feeling for me hearing back all of that. And as well, I want to echo what you just told me, Jim. You made it easy for me as well. You make it look easy for many of us by giving that air cover, which is very crucial. And like you aptly said, it is we were not afraid to
right.
speak our minds and give that awareness, and it was very well received. And I am not surprised at all hearing about Jeff. Given when I was talking to Jeff, he was so excited to be part of this. And he was the first one to give his time, and we went on and on about you. And I'm going to keep
Wonderful
embracing
guy.
throughout this conversation. This is your usual punchline in town halls, where you say when you like somebody, you say, "I want to embrace you" as a forewarning. Jim's
All right,
style.
I'm ready.
The next topic is going to be on something which is near and dear to our hearts, Jim. This is about women in workforce who often endure whether it's pay disparity, glass ceiling, glass cliff situations. And for our audience, I'm going to call out just in case. Glass ceiling is where there are barriers preventing qualified women to higher roles. Glass cliff is when women get promoted to opportunities which are in crisis roles, which most likely makes them fail. And you have three daughters who are thriving young women in workforce, and I have two daughters who are in school. What advice would you give to women who would want to leave the workforce feeling dejected based on all of this which they hear or experience?
Yeah, and this is such an important topic, and it's real,
Yeah.
and it's something that um, we see, and we need to continue to work toward correcting. I'll go back to the strong women that were in my life early on. My mother, I'm married to a very strong woman
Nancy,
and
yes.
someone who is one of the best technologists I have ever encountered. A brilliant mind, just incredibly good at what she does. She would tell you that, she had a fairly lengthy career, and she was progressing very nicely and all that. She worked in defense contracting communications. She did some of the most heady work you could ever imagine. Really, really hard stuff, hard problems to solve. At one point, we started having children, and so she went from full time to part time. And she will tell you that this impacted her career.
Yeah.
And, she continued to still perform at the high level she always did, maybe even higher, because, she was working beyond the part-time hours and all that. And yet she was absolutely affected by the fact that she had made this decision and took a step back. So that's one thing. That was real and, undeniable. Um, to my three daughters, first of all, I credit my wife for a lot of the success that my three daughters have experienced. They had the real benefit of having her for a mother, And that made a big difference, I think, for them. I would also say, though, that they did this in their own right. And so parents can encourage children to do and be and so forth, but the child has to want it. They have to, like it. They have to want to be good at something and so forth. I have three daughters, as you pointed out, who, in their own rights, are extraordinary people. They all have advanced degrees of various types from all top schools. They're all progressing very well in their careers right now. I won't get into what they do because I haven't told I was going to talk about it, so I won't do that. But they all have very impressive, very good jobs, and they're having wonderful careers. But they are also running into that same thing. My middle daughter has two children. My youngest daughter is about to have her first. And so they wrestle with that same question. And so, what I think we need to do here is, and this is what my wife tried to do and what we've tried to get our kids to focus on is, it's hard to balance all of these things, but what you can do is you can, continue to operate at that high level like my wife did, and you can continue to press to get opportunities, the good work, the promotions, the advancements, and all that. And you have to sort of be vocal about that. I don't doubt that my three children will do that as same as my
Yeah.
wife, but it is a challenge. And even for those who don't have kids, my oldest daughter does not have kids. And even for her, with these advanced degrees and so forth and so on, she will still tell you that there are times when you run into these kinds of things. Um, I don't think there's an easy answer to it. I think what we need to be doing is, as human beings, we have to recognize it as real, number one. And then we have to acknowledge that there's a certain need for flexibility here that maybe we don't always give. And I think that's a really important thing. As we went through the COVID experience, one of the things that we saw, and my wife loves to point this out, is this whole remote work thing. 'Cause we
Okay.
all had to do it. I was remote for 2 years during COVID.
Yes.
That was crazy, but we all did it and we were successful. I realized the need to go back to the office, the culture, and all that kind of stuff, and that's also real. But there is this need for flexibility.
Mm.
So you need to recognize that this is a real problem. It does affect people. You need to ask yourself a question. Do I want the best people or not? And if you want the best people, then you're going to have to be flexible and you're going to have to work outside the box a little bit. Because when you do that, I think you do bring out the best in people. You do bring out you create loyalty, you create trust, you create all those things that are very powerful when it comes to an organization being successful. And if you can demonstrate that a person who's able to do the job, promote them up, that's a powerful message to the rest of the organization. I think that's just something we've all got to work on. But
Yeah.
it starts with being aware. It is real, and it's something that we absolutely need to work on. And again, I look at my three daughters in particular now, they're in their mid careers. And I think to myself, gosh, I hope they can continue to excel and be the incredible people and achieve what they've done so far. And we'll see how that goes. But it's something that's a watch item for sure.
What you just did is you have done it before as well. I've had a first-hand experience. So making this a very powerful awareness for everybody. Jim. That first thing is you acknowledging. Have not everybody want to acknowledge for a variety of reasons. Some might feel that we have been talking about this for long and the problem is not there. We have more perhaps women in leadership roles, or maybe we don't have women as much in the glass cliff roles. You and I have seen, and it's the reality, and you're experiencing with your daughters as well, which you have been very open and honest about. And that is the problem is there. It's still not gone. And it will
Yeah.
take a lot of collective um, forces of human to change, and the change with empathy, change with flexibility, to your points. And change is very important. And this is a place where it is super important as women are critical part of workforce. That was fantastic to hear all your feedbacks and thoughts, Sujin. You have seen women of three different generations, your mother, your wife, and your daughters who are thriving in their careers and growing as a very strong family. What is the advice which you and Nancy have given to your daughters growing up? It could be they're getting into college or getting into workforce. What is some of the fundamental things which you've told them that, hey, the problems are there, and here are something which you need to keep hold on to?
Yeah. So first of all, we encourage, 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 and you want to encourage in the right way, meaning you want to encourage them into the direction that they want to go. So it's not. One of the things that I know to be true is that people are going to be good at the things that they like to do. And so when you're encouraging anybody, you want to encourage them in the proper direction. And so with our kids, that's what we try to do. You try to expose them to a lot of different things. You try to encourage them into the areas that they obviously show interest in, and then give them support. But you also want them to recognize the fact that not everything's a given. And there are going to be pitfalls along the way. There are going to be issues that you're going to have to deal with individually along the way. Quick story. When my oldest daughter was in grade school, they had a science experiment. Excuse me, Neil. They had a science experiment. And that science experiment was rather simple sounding on the surface. It was you got an ice cube, you got to put the ice cube into some kind of insulating thing and not let it melt. And the class that had the group that had the least melt won, right? So my daughter Christy came home and we researched this a little bit, and what she concluded was that sawdust would be a good way to go because she had read about the sawmills and the way you stick the ice out in the pond, put in the sawdust, and it wouldn't melt. And so my father was a woodworker. We got a hold of him and said, "You got any sawdust?" "Oh, sure, he's got plenty of sawdust." So we took some and overnight put an ice cube in the sawdust. It didn't melt. So she was right. She went into school the next day with this idea of sawdust, and she knew it would work because she tested it. And she ran into a bunch of 8, 9-year-old boys who were very into themselves and not willing to listen to what my daughter had to say. And they were pretty sure that the sawdust thing wasn't going to work, even though she could tell that she knew it did, right?
Though she tested it.
They ended up agreeing to wrap the ice cube in foil and put it in the sawdust, and it melted. And the reason it melted is because the foil created a little bit of a gap between the ice cube and the sawdust. It's just a good illustration and something that happened early on about how this dynamic that we're talking about, where the loudest voice in the room, whether and that could be male or female, by the way, but
Yes.
it's frequently male, can sometimes dominate, and to the exclusion of good ideas, which gets you back to that whole point of talent and good ideas and success and meeting and achieving goals and all that. And why would you not want to do that?
Yeah.
So I think Christy experienced that firsthand there and probably took that forward with her. She, of course, laughed it off because she knew these guys and all this stuff. But Nancy and I talked about it, and we talk about it a lot, about an example of, something that happened to her very early on that I think is, impactful, in terms of this male-female dynamic. And this is a really good example of A, that it's real, B, it's stupid, because maybe I don't know if I can say that, but
You can say
but
that it's all authentic, vulnerable, and open conversations we're going to have.
it's like
But that is the truth, right?
if you guys had just listened to her
Yeah.
and she knew it would work, she proved it will work, you would have probably won the thing, right? But they
Yes.
did, and they did. So
And that is the reality in even corporate world. There are a lot
yeah,
of brilliant ideas. So, like you aptly pointed, it could be from male or female, but often
yeah,
from the women, the ideas they are rejected, dismissed, or
right,
cancelled, so that
right,
their voices are not heard. And There are a lot of leaders I have worked with, several managers I have worked with. This is one of the reasons, Jin. You made my voice heard. I felt heard, I felt listened, and
Mhm.
that is has been a powerful. We have not been in touch for what, 8 years? Yet I
Yeah,
remembered you and you remembered me, our experience,
sure.
and here we are. I'm talking about you. The very importance of how leaders in powerful positions, they can make people's career, their experience, their lives better.
Yeah.
They can amplify, and you are the best example, which we just talked about your
Well,
child,
thank you.
and that is
Yeah.
connecting down back with me, and my children have experienced something very similar number of
Really.
times.
Yeah.
And I had to, um, Kiran and I, we tell children about the very importance of asserting yourself and drawing that healthy boundaries, which is very important, where you don't keep taking when when you know that you are honest about it and you have seen how it's working, then you need to hold your truth and keep moving forward and
Mhm.
not let your voices minimize you or reduce you.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Laurie Reedhead, I know this was the first leader you called out, like you are a big fan of, and the excitement Laurie showed me. You and I know she has been in very senior positions,
It has.
and she was so humble. She gave her time, she followed up, she made sure that we are having the conversation. That was so kind of her, Jean.
Mhm.
A lot of things that she mentioned about you, and one thing which was very striking, which I wanted to talk about, I'm looking at what she wrote, is you are exceptionally calm in crisis. You navigate and lead not just your team, the entire firm through it.
Mm.
What is your approach to take and manage this and resolve a crisis?
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting question. So first of all, the leader sets the tone. And if you happen to be the person who's ultimately accountable for solving whatever the crisis of the moment has to be, being calm, cool, collected, clear, all those things is important because the rest of the team takes their cues from you.
Yeah.
And if you're a mess, they're going to be a mess. And so being calm, I think, is always the best way to solve problems. And you know, in moments of crisis, you have to have everyone thinking clearly. You have to, first of all, understand what is the problem. Do we really understand the problem? In our cases, a lot of times the crisis is technical in nature. Do I understand the problem? Can I recreate the problem? And if I understand it and can recreate it, I can solve it. But you also need to make sure that you've got people thinking clearly, non emotionally, and trying to get to the best solution. Sometimes there are many different solutions, and you have to work your way through those. But I do think that in a crisis situation, being calm is an important thing. That's not to say that crisis situations aren't stressful. They are, and it's very hard sometimes to remain calm, and
Yes,
particularly if you don't understand the problem and you can't recreate it. That's really stressful. So
it
one of the
is.
things when I was working for Laurie, we did have a major crisis on our hands, and I will also say this: Laurie Reedhead was also very calm, and she provided a great shield against the forces in the company that were pushing hard on this and maybe potentially derailing the effort to resolve it. Laurie is one of the great leaders that I've had a chance to work for, and there are several. Excuse me. But Laurie is a great leader, and that calmness that she brings, that common sense that she brings, uh, that willingness to trust the people that work for her and help them navigate through the problem is really, really important. So you say, well, I'm calm in the crisis. And that's good. But if my manager is not calm in the crisis, then that's going to also make it
That
hard. And
makes
Laura
it
was great that way.
very
Yeah,
hard for you to
yeah,
stay calm.
yeah,
Seems like you are naturally that person, and you are fortunately having Laurie as your manager who has helped and given you that support as well as the calmness you needed.
yeah, yeah. No, she was wonderful that way. And when I say common sense and clear thinking, those were Laurie's hallmarks. And she was a wonderful leader to work for a lot of reasons. But yeah, the being calm under pressure, I think, is a critical aspect
Yeah.
of leadership. And if you're not able to do it, then it's just going to make a problem worse than it might otherwise be.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, Across the world, we have a lot of disruption going on with artificial intelligence.
Mm.
And Lord, there's a mixed feeling of excitement. It is reducing the effort. I, as an entrepreneur, I've experienced that. It significantly is reducing the effort which I'm putting in. There is also nervousness, or for some, understandably, it's about losing their jobs in already very difficult job market. You have been through these ebbs and flows and crises in your career. What
Yeah.
advice do you have for workforce across generations navigating through change?
Yeah, and AI is a really good example of, how the foundation feels like it's shifting.
Yeah.
So start with AI. I still think we're sort of in the nascent stages of AI, although again, it's very real. So I'm not suggesting otherwise. But we've kind of moved now, and maybe we're still in the hype stage, but maybe we're moving through the hype stage at this point and getting to the reality stage and what AI can and cannot do, at least in its current shape. AI is going to evolve over time and it's going to become more and more powerful. But it's real and it's here and it's in our everyday life. You can't do anything in your life today without encountering AI.
Yeah.
And that's actually a really good thing because it's so helpful. I mean, if you think about some of the tools that are available to us nowadays that utilize AI, whether they be chatbots or things like ChatGPT or whatever it might be, these are very powerful tools and they can help you in so many different ways and they're actually very easy to use. So I am a big fan of the AI revolution, if you will, and watching closely to see how it ultimately makes its way beyond just sort of the everyday life Google search kind of thing and into much broader and deeper applications. And what I mean by that is fundamental transformation. So there's a difference between taking things that we do today and doing them more efficiently, but still basically doing the same thing
Yeah.
and fundamentally transforming what we do and how we do it. How do I sell products and services to customers in a fundamentally different way than is done today? New products, new services, or old products and new services, but delivered very differently. And this is to me where the excitement of AI really comes in, is it really has the potential to fundamentally transform the world. Every aspect of our lives can get transformed. Now, what does it mean to the people who are in jobs today that are being influenced or impacted by artificial intelligence? First of all, people need to embrace it. It's real. Again, this is it's real. It's here. It's not going away. It's real. It may not progress as rapidly as some people have said. That's the hype. But it's here, it's real, it's part of your life, and you want it to be. You want to embrace these capabilities. When I think about what that means to jobs and people's today job versus their tomorrow job, I think it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Any technical change that has ever happened has the same kind of fear factor associated with it. Oh, gee, I'm going to lose my job because of this. Interestingly enough, if you look at unemployment rates during periods of time of massive change, that never actually happens. People move into different facets of a job. AI is not different from that. And so, what you need to be asking yourself, and see if you're someone today who's in, grade school even, and you're starting to think about technology and what it means to you going forward, AI has got some enormous opportunity. And if you think about it, it goes back to the data. And, where are the opportunities in the data that people could take advantage of? How do you become that next gen expert on something with data that makes it, more usable and beneficial to an AI model? Is the models themselves. How I'm a model developer. I want to be a model developer. How do I become so expert at model development and how to think about model development and the tools that go with it? Huge opportunity there. There are the risk elements. Think about you can go out and run, put some search into a chat GPT and get back some very interesting and bizarre answers. If you're a company using AI, you need to watch out for that, because if you're going to be doing something that is directly affecting your employees or your customers, you got to make sure that it's right, that there's not bias introduced into it, or that it's just not plain wrong, which in some cases goes back to the data. So, there are so many opportunities here as you think about what the world of AI looks like, not to mention all of the infrastructure stuff going on. The enormous amount of capital investment that's happening in these hyperscalers today is absolutely unbelievable. Here's the question: will it continue? So you get those fabulous NVIDIA chips, and NVIDIA just announced their earnings and they had a great quarter, and life is good. But what happens when somebody comes along with another technology that fundamentally disrupts those chips? And that will happen. It might not be for a few years, but it will happen. NVIDIA's challenge is how do you stay ahead of that, right? But when we think about it from a jobs point of view, and I'm in school, I'm learning, I want to be in these aspects of AI. That kind of technology is another aspect to it. You got these gigantic data centers that someday might get taken down into a little box like this. That's not going to happen tomorrow, but in the next 25 years, I bet dollars to donuts that there'll be fundamental shifts in the way that these chips actually operate and how they're used by these gigantic AI models. You got the energy factor to it. You got the climate factor to it. You got the land factor to it. There are so many elements that are going with this whole AI thing that it just seems to me that there's opportunity across the board for those people who are willing to reach out and grab that opportunity. And that's what I think people need to be focused on. How do I make myself ready and able to capitalize on the opportunities that exist on this vast spectrum of things associated with AI?
I can see there's a lot of passion for you,
Oh,
very
I love this
passionate
topic.
topic. I definitely can see that. And I want to compliment again on the point that it is inevitable, this change with AI, and it made my journey as an entrepreneur so easy. Like you aptly pointed out, embracing the change, upskilling, and finding opportunities to
Yep.
navigate through this change is super important for everybody across the world. It reminds me of Who Moved My Cheese book, a very simple,
Right.
subtle.
Yep.
There are four
Yep.
different characters, whether you
Yeah.
want to be a sniff, a scurry, ham, haw. The choice is our individual choices to make. Ultimately, embracing the change in a positive way is going to definitely reap a lot of good results. So I want to check one more time. Are you still Patriots fan?
I am, and I'm very pleased to say that they're having a great year. So these last few years, not so good. And for those who are not Patriots fans, that's probably a positive thing. But it's been nice to see the turnaround this year. I love Vrabel. I think Drake May is an awesome quarterback, and I got a lot of friends from UNC. So thanks for shipping Drake May our way, because he's been awesome. But yeah, I'm a huge Patriots fan, and it's nice to see them
We
winning
still
again.
are.
I don't know how far they go in the playoffs if they get there, but we'll see how it goes. So
And I want to wrap it up, all of the thoughts, with this final thought towards you, which is you might not know this, you're fondly called the Tom Brady of leadership.
I've never heard that, but
I
thank you.
thought so. I thought so. I wanted to give you that as the wrapping point. How does it make you feel, Jim?
So again, I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by some of the most incredible people that you could ever imagine. You know, some of those names we talked about today, people like Kathy Passant, who's one of the most powerful women in banking, one who has her accomplishments are legendary. It was kind of a capstone of my career to be able to work directly for Kathy, and I just loved those days and just can't say enough about Kathy. And the same thing is true with Laurie, and the same thing is true with Jeff Miller. And I've already kind of talked about them, so I won't do that more. But it's the people you surround yourself with. It's never about you. It's always about the people you surround yourself with. And I go back to a point I made earlier, which is surround yourself with people that are better than you, and you're going to be successful. And
Yeah.
don't be afraid to do that. A players attract A players, C players attract C players, and if you want to get into a death spiral, attract C players, and that'll do it. Challenge yourself to hang around with people who are smarter than you are and who are better than you are, and guess what? You'll get better. But I was very fortunate to be able to come into work and work with some of the best and brightest people that walk the planet every day. I loved the work, I loved the challenge, and it was just really terrific. And
Yes.
and Neil, you're one of Neil. By the way, you're one of those people. So you made me a better person, and I've totally enjoyed our relationship. In 3 years since I retired, this is kind of a nice reconnect with a lot of people and ideas and thoughts and great memories and all that. So
Yes.
it's been a fun process that you and I have gone through to put this together.
Thank you so much, Jim. It was wonderful conversation. I enjoyed every bit of it, and I know our audience is going to have a fabulous time listening to the wealth of wisdom you have shared.
Well, as I said in my opening remarks, I hope that that's true, and if it helps one person, then that's good. And but nonetheless, I've totally enjoyed it. And again, Neil, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Take care, Jim.
Take care. Bye.